Call the regular meeting to order for our city council meeting on Tuesday, August 18th. Members of the public may attend the city council meeting in person or may watch or listen remotely by viewing the meeting on Channel 8, WCTV, and the city's website at wayzata.org/WCTV. Public comment during the public forum and or public hearing portions of the meeting may be provided in person at the meeting in advance or by logging into the Teams call and raising your hand during the public meeting. When your name is called in the meeting, you will be seen and heard in your council chambers in the cable channel. You will be asked to unmute and turn your camera on, and then you may begin your comments. All public comments should include your first name and who the group you're representing is. Next on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance, and I would ask you to stand if you are able and follow along. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next on our agenda is a roll call, and let the record reflect that all council members are present this evening. I will note that earlier this evening we held a workshop in advance of this meeting to discuss proposed updates to franchise fees and ordinance for utilities, discussion of the 2027 preliminary general fund budget and property tax levy, discussion of the Section Foreman's House project and next steps, and then outlined our future workshop topics. Next on our agenda this evening is we need to approve tonight's agenda. I need a motion to approve the agenda as presented, or does anyone want to make any changes?
I'll move to approve the agenda as outlined.
May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Moves along. Public forum, we do not have any items on the public forum this evening, but if you are in the audience and wish to speak to something on the agenda, fill out a card and give it to staff. There are no items for the public forum and no cards, correct? Nothing, nobody on Teams? Okay, so new agenda items. Does anyone on council have any new agenda items to bring up in the future? Hearing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. On tonight's consent agenda is the following: approval of the check register, receipt of fire activity report, receipt of the building activity report, adoption of resolution 40/2026 extending the PUD general plan and PUD CUP for Westway condominiums at 201 Lake Street East, approval of the change order with Zenith Tech for the Panoway project, adoption of 39/2026 accepting a donation from the Wayzata Garden Club, award of a contract to Traverse de Sioux Garden Center for the Lake Street Landscaping Improvement Project, approval of the Memorandum of Understanding with the Wayzata Conservancy for the Lake Street Landscaping Improvement Project, and lastly, approval of professional services agreement with Sustinea LLC for horticulturist services. So I would need a motion to approve the consent as is, or are there any adjustments required?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make that motion.
Great. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Now we're moving on to our new business item. We only have one for this evening, and that is to consider adoption of resolution 40/2026 approving the preliminary plat and final plat for Carpenter's Point 3rd Edition at 535 and 555 Bushaway Road. We're turning this over to our planner, or okay. Thank you. Haley, please.
Thanks, Mayor and Council. The development application for review tonight is an application for subdivision of 535 and 555 Bushaway Road. The name of the plat would be Carpenter's Point 3rd Edition. The owner and applicant are Bushaway Holdings LLC. So the actions requested tonight is to consider the resolution that would approve this application subdivision for preliminary and final plat. The proposed subdivision would divide the two existing single-family lots into three separate single-family lots, and if approved, it would create the three new lots that would conform to the requirements of the R1A zoning district. The project site is located on the west side of Bushaway Road with lake frontage for both of the properties. And these are two vacant parcels. The full site is just over 6 acres. And the northern lot is slightly larger than the southern lot. The current land use and zoning and guiding for the property is, it's currently zoned as R1A, so low-density, single-family estate. The land use guiding for the property is single-family estate, so 0.25 to 0.5 units per acre. The density with the proposed application is, I believe, 0.47, so in line with the density projected within the comp plan. The property is also located within the Shoreland Overlay District and subject to the provisions included there. Some relevant site history for these properties. In 2019, the original single-family home was demolished, and a perpetual conservation easement was granted to the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District for the purposes of floodplain management, primarily. The city also issued a grading permit which modified the average grade of the full site by approximately or just under 2 feet, which is the maximum allowed without council approval per our ordinance. In 2021, the city approved a preliminary and final plat application similar to this one that created the 2 existing parcels from a previous configuration of 4 parcels. The purpose of creating the 2-lot configuration that exists now, the purpose at the time was to allow for 2 new single-family homes after the demolition of the original residence in 2019. The image on the screen is a depiction highlighting the area of the conservation easement across the site. So this is a perpetual conservation easement granted to the Watershed District from the property owner. It's an agreement between the Watershed District and the property owners, and the city's not party to this agreement, but there is public benefit to it. And as you can see by the highlighted areas, it kind of flanks the property on the north, east, and south sides. Restoration work that is referenced in that agreement, which was included, an excerpt of it was included in your packet. Restoration work that was completed with the adoption of this agreement was done in 2019 and completed in combination with some of that grading work that the city approved. And this conservation easement, like I said, is perpetual and remains intact and would continue to remain intact on the proposed lots after successful sale of those properties. So the proposed preliminary plat tonight is depicted on the screen. And as stated earlier, this subdivision would divide the 2 existing single-family lots into 3 separate single-family lots that would conform with the R1A zoning district and shoreland overlay district requirements. Part of a plat approval includes park dedication. The subdivision would result in the creation of 1 additional lot from the previous existing 2 lots, making the agreement, if approved, subject to a cash in lieu fee of $12,500. This chart shows the lot requirements of the 3 proposed lots and the fact that the proposed lots fit within the requirements of the R1A zoning district. You'll see that the lot coverage and the impervious surface requirements are not filled in this chart. That is because there is no physical construction or homes being proposed with the approval of this subdivision. So future homes built on the properties must also meet those lot requirements for lot coverage and impervious surface and setback requirements both for the zoning district and for the overlay district. And all of that would be evaluated at time of building permit. So what should be looked at now is the lot size, width, and depth that are being proposed. Part of staff analysis and what the Planning Commission and Council reviews with a plat application is to see how these proposed lots fit into the surrounding area, particularly how the size of the lots fit into the surrounding area. So this chart shows neighboring properties along Bushaway Road, and it shows that these proposed lots fit within the average of the lots included in that neighborhood and often exceed some of the sizes of the surrounding properties. So this is a depiction of conceptual grading and possible home locations on the 3 proposed lots. This is something that's part of a standard preliminary plat application. But as the council is familiar with these types of applications, often these are conceptual home plans, and again, not being proposed at this time. So what should be reviewed is whether or not these lots are able to be built upon, is kind of the intent and purpose of this graphic. So for project considerations, staff provided comments and also sought comments from outside agencies. The following list on the screen is some of the considerations that staff brought forward to the Planning Commission for their report and recommendation. So in considering the topography and grading on the site, staff recommended that future grading of any portion of that site across the 3 proposed lots require City Council approval. And this would address the unique circumstances of the lots being proposed and the intent of City Code Section 91604D, which is that section that requires any grading above 2 feet to be approved by City Council. For tree preservation with applications for subdivision, each lot will be responsible for trees located on individual property. So each lot being created would then be subject to our tree preservation ordinance and evaluated at time of development. Tree removal is expected to occur with this application when the homes are built. But again, there's not concrete information for staff to evaluate at this time with this application. Similarly, stormwater and ensuring that the 3 lots, once they are built upon, meet the requirement of not exceeding 20% impervious surface. If they were to exceed 20% impervious surface, that would be something that would be evaluated at time of building permit and sent towards a variance application. The utilities on site, there are existing connections to sewer and water available for all 3 proposed lots. The city engineer noted that there's a potential need for a private lift station on 1 or more of the proposed lots, but again, that would be evaluated in specifics with a building permit at that time. And then another consideration of this proposal would be the driveway access onto Bushaway Road. The 3 proposed curb cut openings were evaluated and reviewed by Hennepin County. Ultimately, Hennepin County is responsible for final approval for curb cut openings into county right-of-way and any work proposed in county right-of-way. The official plat review letter that staff received from the county expressed no concerns with the proposal to add what would be 2 new curb cuts, because with the previous subdivision, there was not the second curb cut access ever created. But again, no concerns were expressed from the county in their official review. This slide kind of speaks to what I said about public agency comments, as well as city forester and city engineer comments. The city engineer comments were quite extensive, so I did not include them in the presentation, but they are included in your packet. In summary, the city engineer and the city forester came forward to staff recommended conditions of approval that were ultimately incorporated into the recommendation by Planning Commission and present in the draft resolution this evening. And I will get to those in a future slide. Hennepin County, like I said, provided a plat review letter in support of the application with no requests or additional conditions of approval. The Watershed District also provided comments, and these comments were received after the Planning Commission public hearing and their report and recommendation. These comments were included in your packet, but I did want to make note that the Planning Commission did not get a chance to review these comments. Essentially, they pertain to the conceptual stormwater utilities and erosion control plans that were provided with the preliminary plat. Ultimately, the watershed district requests that the district staff be notified in writing before construction occurs on the site, and that could potentially be an additional condition of approval this evening with the resolution. The applicant followed the typical public neighborhood notice procedures for the subdivision application type. The city did receive 2 public comments on the application. One, it was received after the packet was published, so it's available on the dais tonight. Both of those public comments pertain to a suspected eagle's nest on the property. And there was discussion of that potential eagle's nest during the public hearing and planning commission meetings. So there's a condition added to the resolution that was recommended by the planning commission. And I have highlighted here on this slide. So the planning commission report and recommendation, and then also the resolution this evening, has a standard list of conditions of approval, and then also these 3 conditions for approval that were either added as recommended by staff or slightly edited. So this first one, A, is largely a standard condition of approval for this type of application, but the highlighted portions are what has been added based on planning commission recommendation. And that includes permits authorized by Hennepin County and the Watershed District. Any applicable permits would need to be obtained by the property owners at the time of development or submission of a building permit. And then to address the concerns that have been raised about a potential eagle's nest on the site, it's typical for land use approvals and applications for subdivision one of the conditions of approval is to follow all applicable laws. But we did add in specific language pertaining to following any applicable laws or regulations that apply to a reported eagle's nest on the property. So that would be something that the individual property owners would need to pursue at the time of development. And then you'll see points B and C are the recommended conditions of approval from city staff. So that first one is provided by the city forester, that the applicant must inventory all existing trees in the right-of-way along Bushaway Road and provide a copy of such inventory to the city forester prior to the issuance of any building permits for the property. And then point C was provided by the city engineer and pertains to the requirement that any additional grading on these lots require review and approval by city council because of that code provision related to the maximum allowance for grading on a property. And it's also worth noting that that was a condition of approval of the previous plat on this property. So when those 2 existing lots were created, that was something that was also included in those approvals. And then the reason that city council has not reviewed any type of grading permit for these properties is because there has not been any building permits submitted, at least to my knowledge, for these properties since the time of the previous plat. The primary questions to consider for plat applications, and these are partial or excerpt criteria taken from the city's subdivision chapter. The questions are up on the screen. I would be happy to read them aloud if that would be helpful. Otherwise, it's mostly the standard subdivision considerations. I know council has gone through review of several subdivision requests in the last few years. So that is the presentation that staff has. So staff asks that the council consider adoption of the resolution 41, 2026 approving subdivision at 535 and 555 Bushaway Road. And I am available to answer any questions that the council may have. The applicant is also present this evening and can answer questions that you may have.
Yes, I think we'll go to questions of staff, and then we'll give the applicant a chance to weigh in if they choose to, or if not, that's okay too. Questions of staff at this time? Go ahead. Did you have one, Ms. McDonald?
A couple. Planner Head Bloom, the setbacks that you noted for the lakeshore, I do recall those are sort of kind of by what exists today. So those lines you showed on our first slide, does that represent conditions, or is that kind of accurate of what the setbacks would look like? Yeah, kind of that.
Mayor and council members, the setbacks are included on the preliminary plat. The setback that's semi-variable, that is in reference to the closest riparian principal structure, that one is somewhat flexible based on the order in which these lots get developed. So if the middle lot gets developed before the northern lot, that would change that setback requirement for that northern lot. And that's just one example. It really depends on how the lots get developed and which one may be built upon first.
So these lines that you're showing us on this slide is because of what's next door to the north and the south?
Correct.
Okay, okay. And then my other question is, of course, about that eagle's nest. Your presentation really made it sound like it was a supposed eagle's nest. Are we not sure it's there?
Council members, I didn't mean to suggest that it may not be there. I've actually driven by and looked for it myself, and I can see that there's a nest there. But in terms of representing the city, I don't want to be the one to say that I was able to confirm that that was an eagle's nest, because I'm not an expert. And that would be up to the applicant or the property owner.
Okay. And then, is that tree where that nest lives in the protected water, or through the easement or whatever it is?
That's another thing that I can't answer definitively. I think it would be up to a possible surveyor to find the exact location of the tree. From a layman's view on the side of the road, it appears that it may be within the conservation easement,
Okay.
and subject to inherent protections. I did also do a cursory search of what type of requirement
Oh, good. That was going to be my next
is
question.
needed for building near an eagle's nest, and it is quite extensive. It's largely within like 660 feet of a nest, and that's either an active nest or an abandoned nest, depending on the time of year. Okay. And that's not to say that you can't build, obviously, and I don't know all the details. I'm not an expert in that area, and it wouldn't be a permit that the city obviously issues. Right. But yeah, that's not to say that these lots aren't buildable in any way because of the presence of a eagle's nest.
Got it. Well, thank you. That is what I was hoping you would say, is that you did at least some sort of like cursory look of, because whatever laws that may apply seemed like you were like, well, maybe they exist, maybe they don't. But I'm glad to know that, that you kind of looked into it a bit and saw that there are said regulations, and so we're not just hoping a higher power works to protect the nests and the animals. So I appreciate that. Thanks.
Other questions of staff? Mr. Plekish?
Yeah, I I had some questions too about the Eagles, because that just came to our attention here tonight. But historically, just to make sure I had it right, this originally, as far back as we need to go, was 4 parcels that had just one house on it. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And then at that point, that house was demolished and it went to 2 parcels,
That's correct.
which we're now looking to take those 2 and put it into 3.
Correct.
Okay. Anywhere along the way, let's say when the house was originally there, you probably don't know the answer, but I'm going to put it on the record. Do you happen to know if there was an eagle's nest there at that time?
I do not.
So I can presume probably they came in at some point after the house was demolished. That's just a guess. I'm just throwing it out there. And in terms of the approval today, there is no construction that's going to come out of this. All we're doing is saying these 2 parcels can now be viewed as 3. And so there's no eagle disruption involved in us making that determination. Is that correct?
Mayor and council members, that's correct. All that this application is for the legal subdivision of these lots.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions of staff? Just had one. Could you go back to the slide that shows the curb cuts or potential curb cuts? I guess it's not finalized. You mentioned there was 3, but I only see 2. Am I missing the third? Is one a shared driveway? Or is it the potential that there could be 3?
Mayor, sorry, this is such a zoomed out, and I don't even know that the resolution would be helpful if I zoomed in.
Oh,
But there are 2 driveways
Thank
and
you.
2 curb
Okay.
cuts there, and they are meeting the required setback for driveways in this zoning.
thank you for that clarification.
Yep. Very close together.
And then another question related to the Eagles regulation. You mentioned there are regulation. Who has jurisdiction over that?
Mayor, it would be the U.S. Fish and Wildlife. I don't know if that, in terms of who issues the permit, if that comes down to the state level or if it remains at federal. And there may also be dual permits, state and federal. I don't know. I don't know the details of what
Yeah, that's fine.
would be required, just that there may be something required.
But we're making it known that if it still exists at the time of building, then
Correct.
the applicant would have to follow said regulations. Okay, thank you for that clarification. Mr. Cook?
Yeah, I have a question on this map here in regards to grading and the existing site conditions. So I think as I look at this map, you've got the lowest floor elevation at about right at the limit of what we could do with the high water mark, meaning that you could put, and I guess maybe this is a question for the applicant, but you could put a basement in here, or maybe that's just a first floor on slab, but without any significant fill being brought in or site grading. And I know we will have the ability to look at this and approve that later on, but I just want to make sure that we're not creating a problem down the road where we get into a situation where it's well, we need to do this in order to build on this. So as it looks, the site conditions can accommodate what they're thinking conceptually from a buildable lot for a home that somebody would want to put on these lots.
Councilmember Cook, that's correct, and largely that is what needs to be evaluated at this scale for this approval. And the details of whether or not a basement would require fill being brought in or what that grading would be, ultimately is going to be very specific to that building permit. But the way in which that condition of approval and the way that our code is written, that condition is based off of, that would ultimately be reviewed both by staff in the typical process and by city council at the time. I don't think that a potential issue would be created because ultimately what they need to prove to subdivide these lots is that they can meet the requirement that the first floor elevation is at that minimum elevation point.
Thank you.
Other questions of staff? Hearing none, the applicant has a chance to offer any additional information that they would like to provide us. If you just state your name and who you're representing.
Sure. Good evening. My name is Nate Brandenburg. I'm with the Maslin Law Firm. I'm here on behalf of Bushaway Holdings. As far as the application goes, planner Ed Bloom did a fantastic job putting this application together, so I don't have anything specific to add on that, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions of the applicant? Thank you. Hearing none. Might have one at the end here, but we'll see. But thank you for. So I'll bring it back to the council for discussion. So staff is recommending approval, received unanimous support from the Planning Commission, and they're suggesting that we include some of the Planning Commission's additional, if you can put the slide where we had the, yep, that's what is before us. So who would like to begin discussion on this? Mr. Cook?
Yep, I'm completely fine with this. Think it's be good to see something happen with this if it makes sense to. I mean, these have been for sale as 2 lots or 1 lot for quite a while, and it's a beautiful piece of property. And I mean, it'd be great if I could just buy it and leave it like it is, but I'm not going to do that. So I think anything we can do to make it more economically feasible to have something done here, I'm in favor of. I think we're not Eagle experts up here, and so I'll let the experts let that one play out and trust that all goes according to applicable laws and all that. So I'm in favor of this.
Thank you. Who would like to go next? Ms. McDonald?
I'll go next, Mayor. Thank you. I agree with Councilmember Cook on all parts. I think the Planning Commission did a great job reviewing this application, and I support their recommendation with the conditions that they suggested. I also feel good about adding that additional condition where the applicant needs to send a letter to the watershed district. I'd be in favor of adding that to this approval if it has support.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Pluckish?
Yeah, I'm in alignment with my fellow council members here. If I would have had an issue or a question, it wasn't there to be had, which was the size of the lots, which they're perfectly aligned and they're right smack in the middle of what else is up there. There are, I think, 5 lots that are bigger and 6 that are smaller, so that's not an issue at all. With regard to the Eagles, well, that comes down the pike, but it shouldn't have any effect on whether we vote on this, so I'm in support of this.
Thank you, Mr. Sorensen.
I'm likewise in support of this motion for all the reasons stated. I don't feel it necessary to repeat them. I think they've all been said. The only thing I would add is I think the Planning Commission did do a nice, thorough job in asking a lot of questions and understanding this, and I agree with their conclusions.
Okay. I have nothing further to add. I just have a question for Mr. Stelzel. If we were to include the condition about the letter to the watershed, would it need to be a D, or could we weave it into A because they're talking about MCWD?
Mayor, I guess I'd suggest we look at the draft resolution. It's on page 58 of the packet, because that has all of the conditions, and they're actually numbered in the actual resolution. I think for the sake of simplicity, I would just say you would ask for motion to adopt resolution number 41-2026 as presented, with the additional condition that the applicant send notification to MCD about what?
It's to the watershed, right?
Do we have a copy of that recommendation? Yeah. Okay.
Oh, in writing.
Because MCWD is the Minnehaha Watershed District, correct?
Yes, I'm sorry, I missed.
No, that's fine. I just want
Yeah.
to make sure I got it right.
Yeah, so Mayor, I think you just asked for adoption of the resolution 41-2026 as presented, with the additional condition that's highlighted there on the screen. I think that would be perfectly fine.
That's what I was looking for. Okay. Any other questions before I ask for a motion? So I would ask for a motion for adoption of resolution 41-2026 with the addition that a condition of the MCWD would be, their district staff would be notified in writing before construction commences for inspection purposes. So I'd accept a motion for that resolution.
I'd make that motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
That passes 5-0, and thank you very much for your time this evening. Next, we're going to move on to city manager's report and discussion items. I just have one thing that I wanted to add after you're done.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just a couple items tonight. The first, I want to promote that our last Sunday Music in the Park is happening this coming Sunday, August 23rd, on the Great Lawn, 4:30 to 6. So if you haven't made it, please make sure you come out and do that. I also want to highlight, it's about a month out, but starting in mid-September, there will be new citywide speed limits. They're going to be lowered citywide, so you may start to see some changes that are citywide speed limit has been reduced to 20 miles per hour unless otherwise posted. So there's going to be a couple of areas around town where you will see a few deviations to that, and there will be reduced speed signs listed, like notably Wayzata Boulevard will be 30 miles per hour for a main portion of it. I have to give the caveat that obviously that's on our own city streets, so we haven't changed speed limits on county roads or state highways or things like that. But just wanted to make people aware that starting in mid-September, they'll hopefully notice those speed limit changes, and to just have general awareness, unless it's posted, the speed limit is 20 at Wayzata.
Do we have an inventory of the ones that, as posted, would be? Because I think that would help alleviate questions that have already started coming inbound, and if we could post that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, we can add
I
that
don't
to
know
our
if it's the
website.
fronted roads or
Yep.
whatever,
Yep.
whatever the exemptions to the 20-hour.
Yeah, the notable ones that come to mind based on the last time I reviewed it are Superior, I believe is 30 miles per hour, and the portion of Wayzata Boulevard as it changes from the county to city ownership, and then as it heads further west. It eventually speeds up, but
Okay,
those are the two main ones that come to mind as ones that would be 30 miles per hour.
thank you. Anything else that you had?
That's it.
I just wanted to note that one of our longtime businesses changed hands, and we had a resolution out there recognizing the 20-plus year ownership of Ben and Jerry's that changed hands in the last, I guess, 6 months, and the business is an ongoing concern, but I know there was a big celebration where there must have been 30 plus 40 kids, that had one time worked and scooped ice cream at Ben and Jerry's, first job and whatever. And it was just a really nice community event, seeing all these kids who got their first job at Ben and Jerry's that now have their own little kids. So kudos to the family for that transition, and just wanted to acknowledge them here tonight. So that's all I had. Okay, I would accept, has anything come in on Teams for the forum?
Mr. Mayor, there's not.
Okay, I would accept a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting.
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Meeting's adjourned.